Okay, so back again. Cut off by the military just briefly, momentarily. A touch of censorship happened there. Sensitive subject. I was just saying my allocation point. I was looking at how military had never been a point that I was interested or would even support anyone going into as an occupation. And I was just saying how, reflecting on that, asking myself, well, what is cool about military in terms of their applications? Yes, there's a lot I don't think is very cool with the way it's currently structured, and obviously killing people for the sake of killing people, and the competition mentality within it, where it's based on suppression so much so. But well, it's a huge but. It's not to dismiss that activity behavior, but so moving on, I challenged myself to say, well, is there anything good in the military, in the way it's structured, set up? And yeah, I saw that there was some cool things that were structured in there. Structure itself, as this big industry entity, it's very structured. That's part of why it's so successful, is that it's like a well-oiled machine in a lot of ways. And so it just moves, it permeates, it's everywhere in this world, which really reflects life, ourself, movement. How we create in this world is how we substantiate ourself as structure in this world. So from that regard, yeah, like there's some cool things. And like I was saying earlier, being in an industry, whatever industry you're in, it's so much so who you are within that. And by really immersing yourself within that particular environment, that culture, you're able to be a contributing player within that industry. And it really depends on how much you go into that industry, whether, where you are in participating. Like, it's so interesting because whatever we do for work in this world, it really comes down to, who we are, how much we commit to that work in terms of being a contributor into taking that work into another direction, or, creating something new for ourselves as a result of learning a bunch of skills within that work. There's lots of ways in which we can play with creation in ways that we think are cool. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about that.
Awesome.
Marlen, we didn't really phrase the question so much back at yourself. So
Well,
you kind of opened it up to me and Tala and said a little bit, but yeah, you go into it.
yeah, I did explain that. In my case, if I was in a position, I had the skills, the contacts, or if I was in a situation where there was no other choice and I had to go into that industry, as I said, I would
Okay.
go do the job the best way that I could, in the most honest way, transparent way, even considering that, there's got to be like these underwater situations to make deals, as it is shown in the movie, and not everything was like crystal clear, of course. But in the sense of who would I be with all of that money? That's all that I kind of focused on, in terms of
Right.
I would see their lifestyles, and it's not a matter of what's right or wrong, but me, who I am, what I would do is essentially bring that money back to something that is actually
Yes.
substantiating the life in this world,
Okay,
not so
right.
much the life of the riches or all of that. No. So
Right.
that's what I would do. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that is a cool point. That is what I forgot that you said when we had that brief delay. The money point. Yeah, that I think is a key point, is that whatever you work in, you can take that money and put it into something new that you really want to create. And like the point with Destiny, we look at like the farm as a central source of our creation here. That's a real cool development point, because we're all able to, from various points, positions in the world, contribute to the sustainability of the Destiny Farm, and it's based on principles that we all stand by, support, and that facilitates the continued movement and expansion of ourselves. So,
yeah, and it's a way of transmitting, if you will,
exactly,
the flow of money that goes into that industry back to something that is really substantiating life, really supporting.
Totally.
So yeah, that's what I would do.
I like that. Bit by bit.
You know what? And at the end, the whole notion of everyone can be bought by money, that's the last point that I would like you guys to also look at. Okay. In terms of how he asks the question of, I know that my driver disappeared and this guy from Europe or whatever, the terrorist guy, just shows him a briefcase with money and says, that was the last question that you asked me. And then you see the credits, the Cohen's song Everybody Knows, which is a fabulous song. You guys haven't paid attention to the lyrics.
Yeah.
And I just laughed my ass off, like, ha ha, It's so obvious that we're still in that same wheel of, we're bought with money, but when are we going to decide to stand up? And that's like an existential question as well when it comes to money.
Yeah, I think I've watched like interviews with the producer, which was the terrorist guy, actually, Bradley Cooper, and then he was talking about these points. Like he wanted specifically to aim this part because this thing is still going on. I myself also checked out that website they used, and it's still on. So anyone can, probably they regulated the shit out of it nowadays, but still available, and anyone can participate, so to speak, for making good business. And then, like probably for the government it's good because they get cheaper stuff. For their perspective, that's why they open up these tenders like publicly. And like there was this quote, I even wrote it, like whoever says it's not about the money, the war industry, it's in it, or it's a fool. And it's really describing the whole humanity, how we evolved to this energy beings and only care about this movement of this energy. And then what I wanted to reflect back is that my own personal war industry in my mind, like how I fight each day and having these frictions and battles every day I go on into with my thoughts and resistances, and then how I reflect that back into the world system with my participation. And it's a really cool point to start with demilitarizing the system from inside, like how I stop fighting, and then how I can contribute to the peace with myself, with still being in integrity and being able to look into my eyes up into infinity, so to speak, like not be ashamed of my decisions and the consequences I caused into the world. For me, it's like a good compass to start with, working in my mind, and then my relations with my friends, like the contracts I have with my friends, we agreed upon. And there are a lot of contracts we do not agree upon, but we kind of hope and assume, like these guys, they kind of just hoped. And then the whole company, they just made up. When the tax companies started to investigate them, they just made up stuff. And then they were like, it's all right. We just basically made up stuff. And then they wrote this contract like 70 and then 30%. And then other guy is just believed it. Okay, now I am safe, so to speak. And then not considering that the other guy still can make up stuff. And then actually, that's why they fell.
Cool.
I really like that point of demilitarizing from within and how it relates to that. And, we feed our own conflicts. Also, the same as we see the billions being pumped into war outside, the same thing we do inside as energy. Energy equals money outside. So with our own emotions, usually feelings, ups and downs, and how we go like not really grounding ourselves into, as you were saying, can I stand with myself and am I being or creating myself as the person that I want to live with? And this very much is a question for all of us as humanity when it comes to looking at war, the war industry, and how we can maybe even be in it, but stand there as a contributory factor to back to humanity, back to ourselves. So, any last words, guys? What do you say?
Yes, a few things I'd like to say. Very cool what you guys both just said about the war and the demilitarization of the mind as we process our internal, and it's also reflected in our external communications relations. Bringing it back to the point of money, this is something that I've been playing around with within myself quite a lot lately. Is the real regard for myself here as money, because that's kind of a key point really for us all here, is to realize you are money. Each of us is money, because if we have that regard and consideration and be like, because we look at things from the point that we're separate from money, you know, and then we blame money as like, oh, they just did that for money. It's like, of course, because we are it, you know. So if we realize like everything is like done for money because everything is done for ourselves, and it's just then getting into the definition consideration of, well, who is, you know, ourselves. It's like, oh, to count all of ourselves that encompasses everyone here, then there's that point of like, well, okay, all is accounted for, like, which is a matter of money, you know, the accounting, so to speak. And our words are money. If we look at like the internal process we go through with our words, it's a matter of doing, again, the accounting, like balancing the books, so to speak, as our story, because it's our life story, so to speak, is what we work through, because how we've layered and impressioned our memories over time is essentially the debts we've created against ourselves, because the words were basically, you know, levied with a tax that we superimposed onto ourselves, as how we essentially, you know, hypnotized and impressed upon ourselves a particular stance position that was like from the starting point basis of war. Whether we realized it or not, it's like how we've been existing within our words in our world in one degree or another has been from like the starting point of war games, like military war game activities. And, you know, it's very ironic because it comes back to who we are within ourself and all that we do. And so, you know, utilizing the words that we have here to reflect our world and to bring it back to ourself as the standing as the world here through our words, it's like a matter of the accounting, you know, doing your due diligence to see that you have a balanced ledger, so to speak, within yourself, that, you know, you're not in opposition or you're not slanted, like when some sort of degree of polarization, or that you're not creating this like fixated absolute point of neutrality where it's this warped balance by having, you know, everything suppressed and just pressed down to such a level that this artificial intelligence, so to speak, where it's based on just elaborate code formula that's the ultimate suppression, so to speak, as opposed to just like a sound balance in a way that is great, which is really the insight and understanding that we're all here, we're all it, we're all a part of it. Together, you know, we make up all of it. And I think that really is like the pivot point in changing, well, ourselves and us. As we play with the change within ourselves, that ripples and the play expands outward into others and different things. And it's just a matter of how we get along with playing together, working together. Yeah.
Very cool. That analogy on the accounting and keeping the balance, and at the same time not suppressing but kind of embracing, learning to coexist, to work with what is here, to stop the friction and conflict as the origin of war within, and so eventually it will be without. That would be it. And so, yeah, not to judge the money, because yes, we are it, we have created it. It won't go away unless we start changing the principles that exist within us that manifested it without. Any last words, Tala?
I'd like to return back to what Mike mentioned. It's like the contract, how it's going through the whole movie on different levels, and then bringing back it to self. Like, how can I live contract with myself? Like, how can I make an agreement with myself without polarizing and creating picture and needing going into battles and then existing within internal war? Like having this contract with myself, like what is my principle when I wake up? What is my contract? It's a good word. Like playing with the words and then redefining it, and how can I be these words? And then what you said, like our words are also like many, because we are many, and with the money and many money, it's basically building up the whole world. So we are quite relevant in terms of accumulating individually. So start with self, and then we can expand. And thank you for being here.
Very cool.
Awesome. Yeah, what we accept and allow, for sure.
One final thing. Yeah, Tala really just encompassed everything there. So awesome. And really just, showcasing the whole bit by bit process. It starts with one word, investigating it, moving into another word. And in a way that, well, it's so money. And if you look at, let's play with a money terminology of compounding interest. What is it Albert Einstein would say about compound interest? The most powerful force in all of existence, compounded interest. It's, as we know through like Desteni also, it's like the point of two or more in my name. It's like a bit and another bit makes up another bit, and then there you go. And as we know in walking our process, playing with words, living words, it really opens up so much, because we have so many response abilities, and I find the nature of our response ability stems from our growth within our words, which is our world. Yeah.
Totally.
Awesome.
Totally. All right. I think we're good. You guys happy with our production today? I think it flowed quite well.
Yep.
Yeah, it's done. Thanks a lot for sharing those quite interesting perspectives. Always awesome to see what he's going to come up with from any form of movie, and going into these depths that I think not many go to. So thanks a lot, guys.
Awesome. And again, anyone watching, feel free to contact me or Marlen privately, Facebook or other. Facebook probably the easiest, DIP Lite Facebook group easiest, or any of the other Desteni groups. Make your comment if you have a comment, and we'll go from there. Whether it be about the movie, about the Hangout, we're available. Cool. Thanks again, Tala, for bringing forth this Hangout, really, with your input onto War Dogs. Much appreciated.
Cool.
Awesome. Okay, everyone.